Welcome to The Wireless Way, where wired meets wireless and connectivity becomes strategy. I'm your host, Chris Whitaker, and each episode explores the technologies changing how businesses connect, communicate, and compete. From mobility, IoT, and AI to cloud, cybersecurity, networking, and the intelligent edge, we talk with the leaders shaping what's next. If you're a technology advisor, IT leader, channel partner, or innovation builder, you're in the right place. So plug in, tune in, and join us as we identify the way, map the way, and lead the way. This is The Wireless Way. Let's get started. Welcome to another episode of The Wireless Way. You know, it's funny, it's been a few weeks since I've done an episode, so I kind of feel a little rusty already, but I'm glad to be back. I'm glad you're listening, and I'm equally grateful and happy to have Blaise Brady as my guest. A little bit about him, as always, accomplished technology executive with decades of experience helping enterprise modernize the way they connect people, applications, and data. That's what we're all here for. Throughout his career, Blaise has held leadership roles across networking, cloud, managed services, and enterprise communications, working with service providers, technology partners, and some of the world's largest organizations. Today, he serves as a leader at Graphiant, a company reimagining enterprise networking with the next generation network as a service platform designed for cloud and AI era. If you haven't heard, we're there. It's not coming. We are in the cloud AI era. As businesses embrace hybrid work, cloud-first architectures, AI workloads, and edge computing, the traditional WAN is rapidly evolving. Something that I'm really focusing on. And Blaise joins us to discuss where enterprise networking is headed, why legacy architectures are reaching their limits, and how organizations should prepare for the next decade of digital transformation. Blaise, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Chris. I'm super excited to be here. I did not know there's been a gap since your last one, so I feel honored to be like the first guest in a pause. So thank you so much for having me.
Man, no, I'm so grateful for it, and I was sharing with you pre-show. I mean, it was kind of life happened. Life happened quick. It hit hard, and life. I'm so grateful. I feel like most of my life, man, it's just all been rainbows and sunshine because I'm an optimist, right? But yeah, I'm like everyone else. I have things that go wrong. We suffered a loss, a family friend in the family. And I had a little medical scare myself. So, hey, guys, a little PSA, get your heart checked, keep heart health top of mind. And then we lost a family dog, our family 14-year-old, our family friend, family member, honestly, Lua. So shout out to Lua. But it all happened in a short, window. But yeah, I'm just glad to be here. I'm grateful. It makes you moments like that makes you take inventory, right? You just got to be grateful for what you got. So I hope you guys, as you listen to this show, I'm grateful you're here and we can learn from you, man. But as always, my first question, you got this great bio. You've been at this a while. It's not your first rodeo. What's not the bio that we could learn from?
I appreciate that, Chris. One thing you didn't mention and something that I'm proud of is that I have a personal history of enablement, sales training, sales enablement. And so the reason I bring that up is that I love bringing that perspective to anybody in our industry, right? To honestly, a fellow supplier, someone in a TSD space, or of course the technology advisor. If I can help enable and help them grow, even if they're wildly successful, $1 million a month, $5 million a month, if I can get them to $5 million in one, then I feel like I've done a great job. In fact, just yesterday, a partner sent me he sent me a well thought out, well-rounded document that he was putting together. And he's like, Blaise, what's missing? And there was like just three things. I mean, 99% of the document was perfect. I just noticed three things, sent it back to him, and he made those edits. So I'd love having that enablement mindset.
Enablement mindset. Yeah, that's the channel is strong, and you can count on that. Just like even this conversation I told you earlier, you're enabling me, right? I'm excited. This is how I learn, these kind of conversations. Speaking of learning, and looking back over your career, you kind of hit on some of it already, but how about what's the biggest shifts you've witnessed in enterprise network?
So as you mentioned, I've been in networking for a long time. I started, at traditional networking, selling, point to point, selling frame relay. I remember quoting out, a BRI, right? Like a 256K BRI connection for customers. And it's just continued to evolve, right? The technology's evolved and it's always getting better, kind of bigger, better, stronger. But one of the things that I think changed, and this is intriguing for our conversations today, is in 2008, the concept of SD-WAN started in a lab, right? They were working on it in a lab, and then it really came to market around 2012. The reason I bring this up is that really I mean, software defined, right? If you really like, I worked at TW Telecom at one point in my career, and like the VP of network or the senior VP of network, he would always say, get your hands off the network, right? Because humans make mistakes, and that's where software defined, really adds value. The problem or the challenge, and that's why I love being here today, is that software defined, WAN or SD-WAN, 2012, right? That's 14 years ago. 14 years is an eon compared to what we're doing today. We'll talk more about it as we go, but like around AI and around mobility and around all the things that have changed over the last 14 years. And that's one of the things I love to talk about, is that if partners and customers are still leaning on SD-WAN, you're leaning on a dinosaur comparative to what we're working with today.
Yeah. No, I remember SD-WAN came out too. I mean, it was breaking, it was breaking edge, kind of cutting edge technology. Even the idea of load balancing and being a wireless guy. SD-WAN was stronger when you had that cellular. Back then 4G connection. Now 5G makes it even better. In fact, there were times that the cellular connection the SD-WAN device would go, oh, the cellular connection is more stable. Let's put all the traffic over that. And if you didn't configure right, now you got this $10,000 cellular data bill. So yeah, I remember the early days of warning customers, hey, if this is with an SD-WAN and a fiber coax connection, make sure we configure this right, because it may be more stable than the coax. Interesting. No, I'm glad we're having again. This I feel like we're just touching the tip. This is the tip of the iceberg. I feel like there could be a part two conversation. Um, I like to do these episodes kind of like in, spoon bites, maybe tablespoon bites. So there's a lot to this, but, again, kind of continuing the conversation, I like to get, what's your take on the state of the technology industry slash channel? I mean, what have you been observing? Again, going back to shifts, anything changing for you, or what's your thoughts on that?
So, you know, I, I'm definitely excited about the growth, right? I've had in my career, I've been in and out of the channel, right? I worked in the Quest Business Partner Program, and then I had to leave the channel, and then I worked in the different, channel organizations and sometimes direct organizations throughout my career. The only reason I left the channel is because I had to. Like one of my previous employers, I'm not going to mention it, right? I'm not here to sling mud, but I was living in Denver. I was in a national role, and they basically told me I had to move to Connecticut to keep my job. And I'm like, I don't, I don't really understand. I'm on an airplane, twice a month. Why do I need to be on an airplane out of Connecticut, right? And so I left the channel at that point in time, went back to a direct role just because of the motion
Yeah.
of what was going on. But I never want to leave the channel, right? So I love the fact that the channel is growing. I'm 49 years old. I have give or take 15 to 20 years left. I'm going to spend my next 15 to 20 years in the channel. And the thing that I've noticed, though, I think is interesting. I'm sure it's been talked about 100 times, right? I'm not sharing something groundbreaking, is that the investment, right? Private equity, venture capitalists, they're seeing that there is money to be made in the channel, which is great because that means they're investing in it and they believe in it. But at the same time, again, I'm not breaking new ground here. Like we still have to be, we have to hold on to the sanctity of the channel, what we want to keep sovereign in that channel, even whenever some of that money's coming in. And then also, I mean, as you know better than anybody on this call, the two of us, like ScanSource buying in Intellisys, right? Publicly traded company, again, showing massive belief in the state of the channel, right?
Yeah. Well, can you believe that was 10 years ago?
I can't
It
believe it was
seems
10
like
years
3
ago.
years ago. I mean, I heard that. I'm like, wait, really? 10 years ago? I'd like, are you sure about that? Yeah, 10 years ago. Crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And it's been, yeah, it's been amazing. What a great, I mean, and just like every business, and just like I mentioned earlier, life and business kind of, they're tied together. Business kind of goes in and out, ebbs and flows, changes, things happen. But those, the survivors of the business always find a way to get through to the other side. And that's always fun to watch. Um, continuing the conversation, because I really want to get as much as I can out of you in our time together. Uh, in your current role, even looking back over the past, what trends are you seeing the CIOs should be paying closer attention to that they may be missing or
Yeah,
struggling?
that's a great question. So I'm one of those weirdos that I like read like CIO magazine. I like reading some of their trade rags. I was reading uh there was an article published by a company called Numonics, Numonix, and they actually were talking about literally this, and I read it, and it resonated with me, right? And one of the things that they talked about is that CIOs, what they should be paying more attention to is the shift from connectivity as plumbing to connectivity as programmable, right? We already talked about SD WAN and SD, software defined networking, which again 14 years ago, believe it or not, right? But CIOs need to start budgeting. Like right now, they're still budgeting, I should say, on the fixed capital, right? The tied to a circuit or tied to our hardware and the hardware refresh. Okay, this piece of equipment, it's going to last me 4 years or 7 years or 10 years. So I'm already budgeting for, X number of years down the road to invest again into that, hundreds of thousands of dollars into that hardware refresh. But the CIOs that I feel like are really, kind of looking around the corner, they're becoming aware of that this should become an operating expense that you can dial up and dial down, just like cloud compute, right? I mean, think about it as a service, cloud as a service, UCaaS, all these other as a service models. Network was a laggard. Network, I would is a laggard, right? That's again, I've been in the networking world for a long time, but the time is now. The time is here that CIOs should reframe the way they're looking at it, and get rid of the traditional perimeter and the traditional cost, and start looking at it as a broad level. How do I address my workloads? How do I address my AI? How do I address, my cross-border, connections, but in an operational expense as opposed to just like a big capital.
We'll be right back.
Every 2 seconds, someone in the US needs blood for surgeries, cancer treatment, chronic illness, and traumatic injuries. Yet, only 3% of eligible Americans donate each year, leaving hospitals struggling to keep enough blood on the shelves. One blood donation can save up to 3 lives. With your help, we can make sure life-saving blood is ready before it's needed. If you're healthy and able, please roll up a sleeve and donate. Visit redcrossblood.org or call 1-800-RED-CROSS to find a drive or donation center near you. Donate blood saves lives. It's easy, safe, and one of the most generous things you can do. Thinking about, calls you and your team have had um, with technology leaders of companies, are they frustrated? Are they panicking? Or do they have their head in the sand and they're trying to stick with status quo? I mean, what's the temperature like? And when it comes to, network as a service conversation, are you seeing anything different there?
Yeah, I think it's funny. I would say it's kind of it's a little bit of six of one, and a half dozen. It's like kind of split in the middle. The ones that really get it, right? I guess you could say, some of the industries that are born in the cloud, some of the industries that are really, more cloud centric, if you will, they are 100% with us. I mean, they are 110%. Like they're just jumping in. How fast can we work with you? How quick can we get this done? And we've literally had some customers that we met with them on Monday, close the deal on Thursday, and have them up and running on Friday. Like that's the type of agility and speed that we can work with, and that's our kind of our ideal fit. The ones that are the other side of that coin are a little bit of the laggards that I would say are, well, why I'm status quo, things are fine. I don't want to break it if it's not, I don't want to, try to fix it if it's not broken. And, that's actually, I mean, again, going back to my sales training background, that's the hardest customer for anyone to sell to, right? The ones that are status quo. Any customer that's in mode of change, either growing or shrinking or,
Yeah,
all big
perfect.
position, those are perfect for us. The ones that are just like, I'm fine, or I don't really want to change. Like that's not a reflection on Graphiant solution. That's a reflection on their mindset. They're not willing to change for anything.
Right. I mean, yeah, putting your sales trainer hat back on. I mean, what do you do there? I mean, what is there a point you make? I mean, what converts them from being that laggard skeptic to like, you know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe I do need to do this. Is there a particular data point that gets them to turn?
Yeah. So, I actually, one of my previous engineers back at a company that's now been since acquired, doesn't exist any longer. One of my previous sales engineers, he would say that change is hard. Any customer, if they're making a change, it doesn't matter what change they're making, it's going to be hard. So they need to see some sort of delta, right? 25, we used to use the term 25 to 40% delta. And that doesn't mean 25 to 40% cheaper, but it can be 25 to 40% delta, meaning a better solution, a more complementary solution, greater capability, um, greater, more secure, more capable, more speed, more, fill in the blank, and or less cost, right? And I feel like it's not just any one of those things, but that's where we do, have to educate the customer, and I'm not just inform them, but truly educate them that by moving to a network as a service solution, they're going to experience that 25%, 40%, heck, 50% delta over whatever they're doing today by reducing costs, increasing capability, and having that massive delta for them to say, you know what, change is hard, but that delta is big enough that it's worth our effort. It's worth that change, right?
That's right. Yeah, I guess that kind of goes back to ROI, right? It's like, why would I make this change? Why am I going to get it? What's in it for me, right? Whether it be less long days or yeah, I always think improved efficiency and effectiveness.
Yeah.
I always like to pose those questions to business leaders. It's like, hey, are you as efficient, as effective as you would like to be? Like, what do you mean by that? It's like, well, just in general, is everything going smooth? Is there any problems? I mean, because yeah, when the perception is no problems, if there's no pain, why would that change? Because a lot of times, if you don't know what your options are, how do you know if you're not in pain? I mean, just because you can tolerate the pain doesn't mean it has to be there. So that's good stuff. Um, Moving on, I feel like this whole year of episodes just can't get away from one particular topic, and I think we all know what it is. I mean, AI. It's amazing. It's fascinating. I mean, as a tech enthusiast, I'm loving it. I know some people don't like it; they're scared of it. And I feel like in the channel, AI kind of came out as a strong CX play. I mean, everyone was talking about agentic AI and how it plays in call centers and all, and then that's great. It is. That's changing the game there. How is it changing network architecture? What are you seeing AI in your world?
Great question. And yeah, personally, I'm a big AI believer. I have Claude open all the time. I use AI personally all the time, right? But when you're talking about AI in the network world and changing network architecture, I feel like it's kind of going two directions at once, because AI is the workload that network needs to carry, right? If you don't have network, you don't have AI. You can't just connect to AI with a chip in your head yet, right? But network has to carry the AI, and AI is the tool for the network to run more efficiently. So it's a double-edged sword, right? Or there's two sides to that coin. So first and foremost, as a workload, AI traffic patterns have broken all the assumptions baked into legacy WAN, right? MPLS, SD WAN, all the other technologies, they were designed for east-west data movement between clouds and data centers, and then of course some north-south traffic, but that's what it was designed for. The large model training flows that we're experiencing today and the interface between the edge and the demand for low latency, high throughput, any-to-any connectivity, rather than the traditional hub and spoke, that's pushing the architect towards pushing the architect beyond its limits, right? If you're really going to look at this objectively, the WAN of yesterday is not suited to support the AI workloads of today. They need to look for like a stateless solution, a tunnelless core, a tunnelless fabric that can move the data directly and predictably, right? So that's number one. On the other side of that coin, if you're looking at AI as a tool, AI is automating what used to take manual network operations, right? Like I'm not here to scare anybody. I'm not here to get people to get their pitchforks out and their flame, their
Torches.
torches. But UCAS did amazing things over their time. One thing that it did was potentially bad is UCAS eliminated a role called the voice guy or the voice woman in an organization, right? There used to be two people in an organization. I manage the network, I manage the voice. And that's because they had to manage SIP trunks and PBXs and all these different voice solutions. And UCAS made it simple, right? They made it be able to get rid of those manual operations. That's what AI is also doing for networking, right? That's where we can look for anomaly detection immediately. We can look for predictive capacity planning. We can look for self-healing paths, and AI can do it faster, more effectively than any human, any human can, right? So the near-term reality is that AI raises the bar for the underlying network. It's more than honestly than companies and teams expect. And a lot of existing architectures, they're not going to last, and they weren't built for what we're experiencing today.
Yeah, what we're experiencing today, exactly, because AI is demanding, of course, AI needs data. Data has to be transported from A to B to Z. And we're seeing, the demand for throughput increasing. I mean, are you seeing that? Like even, especially the larger the organization, right? Mom and pops, SMBs, probably not so much, but even they are using AI more. I mean, everything's in the cloud. I mean, so there's more data being sent over the network. Are you seeing an increase in the demands of big data? I mean, is that
Yeah, I think it's happening, but I think what's happening, honestly, even more often is the ability for, like you said, SMB, mom and pop. I do think their demand for data is increasing because they're using AI sort of in a traditional way. They're going to like, they download maybe, GPT or Claude to their computer, and they're just interconnecting over a public internet, which is totally fine. It's not unsecure, but it's not as secure and auditable, secure, and transparent as mid-market and enterprise who want to embrace AI in their organization, but not because they're embracing risk, but then they want to truly intertwine it to their organization so they can audit it. They can set up sovereignty rules. They can set up basically fencing around the AI to make sure AI is not doing something it's not supposed to. So to answer your question, they're not necessarily looking for bigger data or more data. They're looking for ways that they can control and have better control, visibility, security, and like, for lack of a better word, like geofencing around what that AI is doing.
That's great. That's good stuff. Continuing on, we're here on the wireless way. I got to ask you about wireless technology. What do you see the role of wireless technology? And that could be cellular, microwave, satellite, Bluetooth. I don't know. There's no wrong answer. So when it comes to enterprise wireless, where's that being played and used? Is it increasing? Is it flat? What's your opinion on the wireless networking?
You know what? This is you're the expert here, Chris. So if I say something foolish, I'm going to ask that you edit this out. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, right?
I'm sure it's
Uh,
gonna be good.
but like, here's what I understand about mobility, right? Moving towards the edge and towards, like, everything is moving towards the edge, getting closer to the edge, and the device is no longer the anchor, right? Users and workloads and agents, even, they're connecting from anywhere. So mobility is becoming a question of security. It's becoming a question of policy. It's becoming a question of identity rather than to managing an endpoint, from my experience, right? 5G and Wi-Fi and private Wi-Fi networks and private cellular networks, like, they're getting amazing, right? The capability to have that mobile access and network access anywhere is phenomenal. But I think what's happening is, like, the endpoint sprawl from IoT to the edge means that mobility strategy is really becoming an edge connectivity strategy in conjunction with that mobility. So honestly, I'd love for you to say that, yeah, Blaise, I agree, or no, you're way off, right?
I think you're spot on. And it's funny I asked that question because I think one of the things I've learned by studying something so deep is that I don't know it all, and it's hard to know it all. So I always love to get someone else's perspective on it because what's the other saying is, your perspective is your reality, and you have your perspective for a reason because you might have lived or had a conversation that I missed. So always be curious, right? We learned that from Ted Lasso. If you were a Ted Lasso fan, always be curious and have an open mind, because like I said, the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know. And that's humbling at times. Kind of wrapping up this conversation almost, but what advice do you have for partners that you're not hearing from that you should be hearing from? I mean, what advice do you have for partners that are maybe kind of that circuit slinger and they're not thinking of the other revenue opportunities? What's their ROI? What device do you have for them? I could just end my question at some point here. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, I love the question. So I also have a podcast, not nearly as popular as yours, but I call it the Brady Bunch of Reasons. Last name Brady, the
I
Brady Bunch,
love
don't
it.
go, right? And I
Yes.
put one out, gosh, 3 months ago, 4 months ago. It was called the Brady Bunch of Reasons to Sell Blue Ocean. So have you heard, Chris? Are you familiar with the concept of blue ocean versus red ocean?
No, I've heard of
No.
blue zones, but not blue ocean. Yeah.
So here's the gist of it. Red ocean is red because it's bleeding, right? There's tons of competition in the water, and everyone's fighting for the same widget, right? They're all fighting, and partners and suppliers are going back to customers and saying, "I can get you 5% cheaper. I can get you 5% cheaper. I can get 5% cheaper." As the partner, I'll even cut my commission to win this deal. And the reason why the ocean is red is because it's bleeding. Everyone's fighting over the same widget. Blue ocean is it's blue because it's clear, it's wide open, and there's not much competition in the water. The reason why I say this is because I feel like what partners are potentially overlooking, or where partners should be focusing their attention, is that they need to lift their eyes away from, like you said, circuit slinging and whatnot, and look for blue ocean opportunities. One of the blue ocean opportunities, selfishly, is of course Graphiant, and it's just, even taking it one level up, it's the consumption model itself, right? Most partners are still selling, and they're still focusing on the compensation around maybe a one-time hardware sale, where they're working with a bar or whatnot, doing a one-time hardware sale, or they're doing multi-year circuit contracts, and they're leaving reoccurring, potentially even higher margin services on the table. A customer might ask a partner this very question, an advisor this very question, right? If they ask the question, it's like, help me, I need to get a new circuit, or I need to get a new connection to XYZ, location. There's two ways that an advisor can answer the question. The first way is, I'll get you a better price for that circuit. Don't worry, I'll run that down for you. Or let me help you re-architect your connectivity with a flexible service model, right? It changes the conversation, and it allows that partner to be leading the conversation and leading the thought-provoking conversation versus, just going out and getting a cheaper price, right? The last thing I'm going to mention here, because it goes, hand in hand, is that the other thing that maybe partners are overlooking is that the displacement opportunity of aging MPLS and SD WAN, right? Again, this is selfish, right, for me and Graphiant, but MPLS, I mean, I remember in, the late 90s, early 2000s, talking about MPLS technology and training salespeople on multi-protocol labeled switching. Believe it or not, MPLS is still growing. I read this article, maybe 60 days ago. The MPLS is still growing year over year, which blew me away. The second thing,
Wow.
yeah, I know, I didn't expect that, right? The second thing is SD-WAN is, again, 14-year-old technology, right? So the fact that AI, data sovereignty, consumption models, this has a great opportunity for a partner to bring a fresh, urgent reason to reopen those conversations.
I love it. One thing it just occurred to me too. Yeah, we've mentioned Graphiant several times. Tell us a little bit more what problems Graphiant solves, and what's an ideal customer look like. For listeners that are in our business and tech enthusiasts. Why should they know more about Graphiant, and what are you solving for, and who's coming to you for solutions?
Yeah, yeah. So first and foremost, please reach out to me. I'm the only Blaise Brady on LinkedIn. Actually, there's a second Blaise Brady. She lives in Salt Lake, but I'm the only Blaise Brady in our industry on LinkedIn. So reach out to me on LinkedIn. But here's what I'm going to say in a very brief period, right? Graphiant Network as a Service solves three use cases predominantly. There's other ancillary things, but three use cases predominantly, right? Number one, WAN replacement. I already mentioned it. MPLS, SD-WAN replacement. It's stateless, it's tunnelless. It can do everything that SD-WAN and MPLS can do, but bigger, better, stronger, faster, and usually cheaper, right? The second use case that I think, and that's a great use case, but sometimes those take time, right? It's customers are looking for their contracts to age off. They're looking for things to change drastically. The other two use cases can be a great bolt-on to whatever the customer is doing today. And I guarantee you, every single partner that's watching this podcast has 10 of these customers in their book of business. The first one is cloud connectivity optimization. Because our fabric is interconnected with AWS, Microsoft, and Google, now it can be cloud, it can be branch to cloud, user to cloud connectivity, which gives them better security, better visibility, better throughput, better, just better everything. And it's probably cheaper than what they're doing today directly with AWS, Microsoft, or Google, right? So we can bolt on to whatever they're doing today, shift them from their sort of traditional connectivity over to the Graphiant way. We have a customer that we recently did this for. We saved them 47% over what they were doing, yesterday, to coming to the Graphiant way. And it wasn't a forklift. It was a very simple tweak in how they point your point your solution to Graphiant and then AWS versus pointing it directly to AWS. The third use case, and this is another one that happens all the time. Did you know that VPN is 30 years old? 2026 is the 30-year anniversary of the invention of VPN. How many
Wow,
customers?
that feels
Yeah,
right.
I
Yeah,
didn't know that either until I started researching it. How many customers are still managing hundreds, maybe thousands of VPN tunnels? And like you would never, like you're a mobility guy, you probably remember the Star Tech, flip phone that Motorola created.
yeah,
That's also 30 years old, right? So customers, we don't tell customers to use their Motorola StarTech, but we still tell customers to use VPN. So we have a great solution called B2B Data Exchange that can replace VPN, more elegant, easier, better visibility, better control, better experience for the end user and for both the customer and their end user of the VPN type of a experience. And again, it can displace what the customer is doing today in a very fast way. This is the customer earlier I mentioned that we met with it was a Fortune, gosh, I want to say Fortune 100 customer. We met with them on Monday. We met with them again on Thursday. We had them up and running on Friday with our B2B data exchange, and the customer was ecstatic. They no longer have to manage thousands of VPN tunnels.
wow. Yeah, I remember there was a supplier a couple of years ago. They were giving out T-shirts in Vegas that said, "Friends don't let friends use VPNs." So, it's funny. It's like, is this the death of is VPNs? Going to fade away,
Yeah, I hope
replaced
so.
by new technology? Yeah, I mean that's the cycle. I mean, POTS lines, hundreds plus years old. They're definitely going away, and they have been. Man, fantastic. Okay, so it's something a little new. I figured I've heard other podcasts do, and I always like it. So you're my guinea pig for the lightning round.
All right.
Quick questions, quick answers. Okay, in short answers. That's probably the give me short. Keep it short, and pithy. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Favorite business book?
Oh, two come to mind. But the one I quote most often is called the like switch, Like, the like.
Fantastic. Most influential mentor?
I'm gonna give credit where credit's due. I'm gonna Mike Brennan. He's in the channel of the channel. We used to work together. I worked for him. I worked with him. He's now an advisor. Forge is the name of the advisory that he works with. But it doesn't go a week without me asking Mike for his guidance.
Great, great, great answer. I love that's a great question. Yeah, yeah, there's a lot of good stuff there. Biggest lesson learned in your career?
Oof, I'm gonna say, be willing to, to basically reinvent yourself. Be willing to learn, right? Be willing to pivot. I feel like that's where, if you get stuck in your ways, you're gonna flail and you're gonna fall. So you have to be willing to like reinvent yourself or evolve. I don't want to quote Steve Jobs, exactly, but it's something to the effect of if you're not willing to cannibalize yourself, you're gonna get eaten. So you have to be willing to evolve.
Right, man. I heard another guy say evolve or die. I mean, it's pretty
There you
pretty
go.
extreme. Technology you can't live without.
Oof. I'm gonna say, and this is, I'm gonna go to the kitchen, and I'm gonna say the technology I can't live without is my espresso machine. You asked that first question of coffee or tea. I drink way too much coffee, and my espresso machine, it is. I'm blessed every day that it continues to work.
My God, I was kind of thinking along the same lines because I was thinking most people would answer that question, my iPhone or the internet. So I love that you didn't go there. And quick shout out to coffee. I recently got on the mocha pot train
Okay.
back in March. We went to Italy, and I never even heard of a mocha pot, but the Airbnbs all had this little mocha pot thing. They call it a stovetop espresso machine. Have you ever used one?
Okay. Now you say stovetop espresso, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've never used one myself. I've never been to Italy either. So two things I need to check off my bucket list.
You really do, brother. It was a gift actually from my favorite son, my only son. We have 4 kids, 3 daughters and a son. Marcus took us to Italy in March as a Christmas present, man, because I probably wouldn't have gone if it went for that. So anyway, yeah, highly recommend that. Look into mocha pots. It's really cool. So every morning I have a mocha pot cappuccino. Okay, back to the light. We're almost done here. One prediction for enterprise networking over the next 5 years.
One prediction for the next 5 years. I'm gonna say, like, I guess I'll go maybe a little bold. Traditional networking, right? So MPLS, SD WAN type of networking is going to be retired over the next 5 years. Just like we retired copper, solutions like MPLS is going to be retired over the next 5 years.
This seems kind of similar in the previous question, but best career advice you've ever received?
This is way back in the day. This is going back probably 25, 30 years in my career. Ask for what you want. And here's the story. I was passed over for a promotion, and I went to my boss and I said, his name was Craig. I said, Craig, I'm a little disappointed. Like I didn't get that promotion. I wasn't even like considered for the promotion. And he responded, I didn't know you wanted the promotion. Like you didn't tell me you wanted it. You didn't tell me you were interested. So I didn't know to even talk to you. So anyone out there, ask for what you want.
Great, great advice. Blaise, is there anything else you want to add? Anything else you want to leave us with as we wrap up and land plane here? Anything we didn't cover you want to hit on? Oh, and by the way, I will have links to your LinkedIn and to Graphiant's website. So check the show notes. There'll be more information about Graphiant and Blaise. But anything else you want to leave us as we wrap up?
Last thing I'll say, and it's one of my favorite things to say, is focus on value and success will follow.
Fantastic. Focus on value and success will follow. And I love that. Yeah, because I subscribe to that because my goal is always to add value. Like even this conversation, I'm hoping you're finding value and being here and hoping you're listening, you're finding value. So thanks for that, Blaise. And man, thanks for making time for us today. I appreciate it.
No, Chris, I appreciate it. I'm sure there's a long list of people that would love to be on your wireless way. So I'm honored to be part of it.
Man, well, I don't know about that, but I will say I'm grateful. 5 years running, over 100 countries, listeners, so hey, that's kind of cool. Yes, and most of those countries, maybe you're single digit listeners, but hey, one listener matters to me. I'm grateful you're listening. So thank you for listening wherever you are, and thank you for being my guest today, Blaise. There you go, folks, another episode of The Wireless Way. As always, if you heard something you like, thought of a client, check the show notes, reach out to Blaise, share this episode with your friends or customers, and we'll see you next time on The Wireless Way. We spend a lot of time talking about technology, innovation, and the future of our industry. We chase goals, deadlines, and the next big opportunity. But none of that matters if we don't take care of the person behind the career. Mental health is just as important as physical health. It's okay to slow down, unplug, ask for help, or simply check in on someone you care about. Sometimes a simple conversation can make all the difference. If you're struggling, know that you're not alone. Reach out to a friend, a family member, a colleague, or a mental health professional. And if someone comes to you, take the time to listen. You may never know how much that moment matters. Till next time, keep learning, keep leading, keep connecting. And as I always say, identify the way, map the way, lead the way, take care of your network, take care of your business, and most importantly, take care of yourself.